gentlemen, welcome to the 21st Annual Oakwood Cemetery Walk. Today we take you to the movies. You'll be going back to a time before Hollywood, a time when Waukegan played an important part in some of the very earliest films. You'll hear from some famous Waukeganites who made it big in show business. On behalf of the Waukegan Park District, the Waukegan Historical Society, and the City of Waukegan, we thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy your walk, and please be mindful of your step along the way. So without further ado, lights, camera, action.
The first individual I'm going to talk about is Edward Amet, A-M-E-T. This is 1894. He's an electrical engineer in Chicago, and he's drawn to Waukegan because of the incubator operation that Henry Clark has at the end of Madison Street at Spring Street, down below the bluff. And he's got about 20 workers and about 10 more machinists that work in his shop. And a variety of different inventors move in and out with their ideas, and they have the machinists that can try to reproduce this. And many inventions come out there, and many are attributed to Edward Amet. He goes into Chicago one day and sees Edison's Magniscope, movie projector, and he knows immediately that he can improve upon it. So he comes back to Waukegan, and within a couple of months, he's invented the improvement, the Magniscope, and it's first shown at George Spohr's Opera House in Waukegan. It's an instant success. The next day, 150 ordered just the next day, and 500 produced the first year. And these are replacing Edison's Magniscope in the theaters around the country, later to be sold around the world. He's a very impatient man. He's always on to the next thing. So the next thing that he decides to do is he's going to start making movies. That was the thing that was coming. And so at his house at 421 North Avenue in Waukegan, he builds behind his house a studio and a drying tower. At those times, the films were shot in 60-foot lengths. So he needed a 65-foot tower, so once they were developed, they could be hung up and dry. They started making shorts. Now, in those days, a short, was a little bit of a movie shown at a vaudeville house in between acts. The novelty of having a movie of any sort was an attraction to a vaudeville house. Some of the first very shorts that they made was a laundry wagon being pulled down the street. He filmed trains coming into Waukegan Station. Fire trucks going by, horse-drawn. One of the first interesting things that he does is of two young women. He invites over to his house on North Avenue Bessie Dunn and Isabel Spohr, George Spohr's daughter. They're both 20 years old and nice-looking women, and they come to the house dressed in their finest with their makeup, because that's what they think they're going to do. He gives them boxing gloves and tells them to go at it. That's what he filmed. This was shown all over the country. 11 years later, Bessie's out in Seattle, Washington, and an usher from that area sees her and says, "Aren't you in the movies? Weren't you in that famous movie of two girls boxing?" Of course she was. Amet next filmed McKinley's inaugural parade. That was shown all over, right? Just as this boxing was. His most famous film is of the Spanish-American War. It's a sea battle of Santiago. No movies were made of it. He recreated it all in a large horse trough in his backyard on North Avenue. The battleship is 4 feet in dimension. He got all the dimensions off the wire. All the other ships are to correct dimension. He created a way of electronically firing fireworks to recreate the cannons. It was a wave machine to create waves within the tank. The movie was so accurate that the Spanish government bought the movie for the court-martial of the admiral of the fleet. And George Spohr goes on to have S&A Films actually in Chicago, and their first great star was a guy named Charlie Chaplin. You probably heard of him. He later leaves them and goes on. But S&A studios were open for a long time, and Amet leaves Waukegan for for basically the Hollywood, the California situation, because he's positive that he can sync all these are silent movies. He knows that he can sequence talk with the movie itself, which nobody had done, and he works on that out in California.